Yep, I'm an actual moron and sat in business class by accident. Even till this day, I still don't know how I managed to pull this off, but I'm gonna try and explain the story from the very beginning. So, it was a long semester. I remember I was just mentally clocked out. I just wanted to get out of school. And, the whole process in the airport, where you check in your baggage, go through TSA, was all a fog to me. I think I just turned my brain off and, just kind of went with the flow of things of how I dealt with, standard procedure of what you do before you get on a plane. And honestly, everything was fine. I think everything was extremely smooth until I got into the plane. I remember, I sat down, I read my boarding pass, and I was like, okay, this is my seat. But then, I was like, wait, but this is too luxurious for me, like, is this really mine? I looked back at my boarding pass and I was like, yeah, no, this is right. And let me explain. I thought this seat was extremely luxurious because it had like the whole thing where you can lean back on your chair, get your feet up. You can have like your own private space where you can literally sleep. Like your chair can become a bed. And during, when the plane, took off, I had the power to order ice cream, get drinks, and just go crazy on like whatever I wanted. And I started doubting myself again. I was like, wait, but this sounds too good to be true. But my parents told me this is premium economy. Like I got a premium economy seat. And I think because I was just so mentally logged off, I just said, you know what? Okay, I guess this is just premium economy. I don't think this is, anything special. It's just a little more premium than I thought. And so I think 4 hours into the flight, I was woken up. I was taking a nap, living like a king. And I got woken up by someone who's working on the flight, and they were like, excuse me, can I take a look at your boarding pass? And I was like, dude, for sure. I was confident. I was like, this is my seat. And the person looked at my boarding pass and said, your seat is actually seat, I think it was like 40 something. And I was like, no. My seat is 23. I think it was 23. I'm just pulling a number out of my behind. Something like, low. The number was low enough to make me feel like I was justified of sitting, closer to the front. And I was like, yeah, no, this is my seat. And the person was like, no, I don't think so. I think you tricked us. And I was like, kind of foggy. I just woke up, remember? And so I was like, wait, let me take a look. And so I took the boarding pass back and I looked at it and I realized, holy shit. It was my gate number that I had read as my seat number. And I was like, dude, this is cooked. And I couldn't believe it. I kept like rubbing my eyes. I still couldn't believe it. I was like, oh no, I'm so sorry. Like this is genuinely a misunderstanding. I thought my gate number was my seat number. And they were like, no, you tricked us. And at this point, I was like, shaking and frightened and as hell. And, I just didn't really know what to do because I had just turned 20, I think. And come on, logically, how can a 20-year-old see their gate number as their seat number? Even I don't really know how I did it, but I did. Which, jeez, man, it's crazy. And, we got into like this back and forth and I was genuinely trying to prove my innocence and they weren't biting. And I remember they took a picture of my boarding pass. They like pulled me to the side and said, you're going to have to pay, for essentially sitting in business class. And they genuinely thought I was like, intentionally doing this. And honestly, looking back, I don't blame them. Like a 20-year-old mixing up their gate number as their seat number is essentially the same thing as saying my dog ate my homework. So fair play. And so after like this whole hiatus where they took pictures of my boarding pass and gave me a lecture next to the toilet near the cockpit, they took me back to my original seat. And dude, everyone was staring at me. And it didn't make sense. It was like night. People were supposed to be sleeping, but they were still staring at me. And I sat down and for the next 8 or so hours, I didn't eat, I didn't play any games, I didn't do anything. I just stared at that black empty screen in front of me and just was like blanking out. I remember I was writing like job applications to become like a bartender in areas just to make some like cash to pay back my my business expense, if you will. And I was just freaking out. I was just like extremely sad. Fast forward to the end of the flight. Even the person next to me was like, "Little boy, it's okay. You're gonna be just fine." And I couldn't tell him, "No, dude, I'm not. I'm screwed. I gotta pay thousands of dollars for sitting in business class when my seat was actually premium economy." Like, how can I even explain that? It was just a mess and embarrassing as hell. And we landed, and I was told that I could potentially be arrested and put into like some detention area at the airport. And I didn't want people to see me get handcuffed and put in the detention center, or at least that's what they told me. So I just didn't want that to happen. So I waited for everyone to get out, and I realized I was the last one left, but I still wasn't arrested or anything. And I I look up, and the people working on the plane were telling me to get off, and I stare at them, and I'm like, "Aren't you gonna?" In my head, I was like, "Aren't you gonna arrest me or like do something?" I didn't say it out loud. That would be foolish, but I kind of looked at them, and I'm just like, "What's going on now?" Like, and they just said, "You can go." And you bet my ass was running as fast as I could. I ran to baggage claim, was like, pacing back and forth until I saw my luggage, got my luggage, and I met my parents outside the airport. And I didn't even hug them. I didn't even embrace them. I told them, "We got to get out of here." And they were like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And I took them, and we left the airport as fast as we could. And long story short, just don't be an idiot when it comes to like important stuff like this. And honestly, it's kind of silly. Like, I feel like most people won't even make this mistake, but I guess, I don't know. Moral of the story is, please, when it comes to stuff like this, just pay attention to the finer details. You can shut your brain off later, but when it comes to things like a plane seat or like an exam hall or, just like a location type of detail thingy, just please pay attention and be careful. Afterwards, shut your brain off. Become like, a doo-doo brain, and just, you can chill. But before that, please, moral of the story, keep a lookout for the finer details. And I figured I'd just share this story. It was kind of random. I was just thinking of stuff to talk about, and honestly, this was one of the big ones I really wanted to highlight, just because it's super memorable. And looking back, I still don't get how I managed to pull this off. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please don't sit in business class by accident. And hope you guys enjoyed, and thanks so much for those who stuck around to the very end of the video, and I'll see you when I see you.